That's what men did for fun. Anyway, the next major phase of development is what's known as red figure pottery. And that was from about 550 to 300 BC. And it was developed by someone who's referred to as the Andokides painter. We don't know exactly who he is or you know any of the finer details, but he is the one who is attributed to whom this development and technique is attributed. And what it is it's the black figure process reversed. Brilliant, isn't it? The reason he did this is because more internal detail is possible with the red figure technique. And another just sign of how brilliant he is, not just as an artist, but as a salesman, is there's this bilingual pottery. Because if you come up with a brand new technique, it can be a little hard to sell sometimes. So you make pots that on one side is the traditional black figure pottery, on the other side the exact same scene depicted red figure. And the resolution on this isn't very good, so you're probably not going to be able to tell, but you can Google some of these bilingual pottery images and see for yourself just how much more detail you can get with red figure. It's stunning, and this was a brilliant way to do it because people could buy the black figure pottery, which was still the status quo, but at the same time be a little experimental, and eventually it caught on. People noticed that he was onto something with that, and it became the dominant technique. After that, we've got phases that still use the red figure, but are called different things, like the late Archaic, which was about 500 to 470 BC. And it's known as its own phase because you see a decreased number of figures and details per vase, and this is where you see the development of those new pottery forms I went over earlier, the lekitos. There it is again, only instead of using black figure, you see red figure. So instead of, a bunch of figures on the same vase or piece of pottery, you see fewer images. The scenes are a little less crowded than before. Then we get to what's known as the classical. It's what we've been talking about this whole time, sort of, leading up to this. And you can tell a classical work because the figures are stockier, the scenes are more anticipatory, meaning that instead of seeing the action, you're seeing the moment before the action. You can see that right here with it's the story of, who was it? Was it Oedipus and the Sphinx? Call me out on that if I'm wrong, because I hate misquoting it. Anyway, you see that scene. It's not a big action-packed moment. It's him sort of just staring down the Sphinx. It's like Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and you got the three guys, Man with No Name, well, the good guy, the bad guy, and the ugly guy. And there's that 2 minutes where they're just staring each other down and the music's playing. Anticipatory. It's intense. People were noticing that thousands of years ago. And that's what you see on this pottery. People obviously knew the story, and this was just that intense moment before anything really happened. Brilliant. This, some action is going on, but you will notice that the figures are a bit stockier, sort of feel a little bit more static. And there are more folds to the garments, and the influence of other cultural developments in the realm of art and drama. You see depictions of tragedies, which by this time had become, I'd say, probably one of the more dominant forms of Greek drama. It's the kind we read most of today, Greek tragedy. Everyone loves one. Then we get to the late classical, about 425 to 200 BC. There is a softening of figures and a drastic change in the topics portrayed. You'll remember that a lot of what's being depicted are legends of heroes, Heracles and Theseus, and their glorious heroic Grecian past. That's changing a bit now. You see more Dionysus and Aphrodite, Bacchic scenes of wine, women, and sun, even some erotic scenes that I'm not going to show you because this is for ninth graders. If you really want to see them, I guess you can Google them. But be careful. How much you want to do. Anyway, you also see scenes from domestic and private life. The life of women, depiction of jewelry, because that's what women do. They, wear jewelry and stuff like that. These really are more, it's like the age of excess. Instead of heroes and virtue, it's a celebration of hedonism, wearing lots of jewelry, doing naughty things sexually, and drinking, and all that sort of stuff. Dionysus and Aphrodite. Um, there are a few explanations for this cultural change. One is this is off the Peloponnesian War had just happened, uh, and that the end of that marks the decline of Athenian dominance in not just political balance of power, but in the pottery trade as well. So there's this big war between Greek versus Greek, and maybe after this they just sort of became disillusioned with those tales of heroism and turned to excess. You could say that sort of thing has happened time and time again. And then we end with what's known as, some people call it the 4th century style, some people call it the Kirch style, but you see crowded compositions, statuesque figures, they added colors, blue, green. This is just kind of the last hurrah of painted pottery, I suppose. The last red figure pottery item dates to about 320 BC. This isn't the last one, but this is, an example of one of the last ones. You notice it's kind of crowded. There's a little bit more color to it, and the figures are a bit taller and static. It's like they're depictions of statues. This was followed by the Hellenistic period. We all know that, Alexander the Great story. That period, as far as pottery goes, they did make pottery, of course, every civilization does, but it lacked painting. There wasn't an awful lot of that going on. So, which brings us actually already to the end of the presentation. In summary, the changes in style and method when it comes to pottery in ancient Greece correspond to the rise and fall of cultures, social developments, and trade relations. We see a clear chronological progression of style and technique, and also the development of workshops, masters, and students. That's how these things got done. And yep, that's it. If you have any questions or comments, I enjoy constructive criticism. Otherwise, thank you, and good day.